You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
Hey Ramblers, today's episode is brought to you by Fangoria. Since 1979, Fangoria has been the authority in the world of contemporary horror. As the only sanctuary for horror aficionados in its early days, it has now grown into an empire that expands beyond its celebrated magazine. From t-shirts, coffee mugs, beanies, enamel pins, there's something for every horror fanatic in your world, even if it's you. So head on over to shop.fangoria.com/pencil and paper productions or use code pencil and paper productions at checkout to get 20% off your first order or magazine subscription. Yes, it is a mouthful, which is why there are links in the show notes down below. That's shop.fangoria.com/pencil and paper productions or code pencil and paper productions at checkout for 20% off. Fangoria, first in fright since 1979.
Buy it or we'll tear your soul apart.
And people didn't like it.
What did you find, Stephen?
That's not what I found, it's what I did.
What did you do, Stephen?
I feel like your voice is not going to be heard for the first part of this, or at least it's going to be off in the background.
Oh, no.
We had a whoopsie.
Yeah, we had a whoopsie. I wish I'd fucking saw that shit before. I'll see what I can do. God damn it.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Horror Ramblings podcast. This week's episode is brought to you by Grox, the gremlin-proof shoes, which I really could have used last week. Just saying, my bites have finally healed up for the most part, and I gotta be honest, gremlins carry a very rare form of rabies, so I was a little crazy for a little while there. I'm doing much better, though, much better. I am pleasantly surprised today, because not only is Stephen here, his lovely wife, Katrina, who I have known for years, is here too, so I'm a happy camper today.
Yeah.
How are you guys?
We decided that we were going to surprise you with a little something because, she was on last week's show. She joined me for In a Violent Nature, and she watched today's movie with me as well. And I figured, you know what? We've not done a podcast with the three of us, so let's do a podcast with the three of us. Let's see. Let's do it. Let's finally pull the trigger on it and be done with it. So, not to be done with it, but you know what I mean. Just make it happen. That's what I meant. That's what I was really trying to say. Forget all that other stuff I said. That doesn't even matter anymore.
It could be the first of many.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to stop. Hi, Katrina. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you just been staring at me over there.
Sorry, I'm laughing.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Hanging in there. I'm hoping that fall decides to make up its mind, because it was like 60 degrees the other day, and then today it's almost 90, so it's wonderful.
Yeah, that's how our week started out so good, and then it got so hot. By yesterday, it was miserable.
It's terrible. I have to say this to both of you while I'm thinking about it. I listened to the show from last week and went ahead and I just put the movie on. We just talked about this a little off mic, but yeah, I think you guys did a lot of people a favor by talking about it. Hopefully they listen before they watch.
I mean, look, I understand people are going to try to have their reasons, but I stand by what I said, and the guy is in a pretentious filmmaking state. I remember that state where you thought, I'm going to do something really artistic, and people aren't just really going to understand it. You just really got to understand it, and you're just like, but yeah, man. And then you've got those people out there trying to defend it, and you don't have to, man. It's fine. The world's not going to turn on you if you don't defend this movie.
True.
I'm the same person who said Citizen Kane is an overrated film, and that's on everyone's greatest movie of all time list. I disagree.
I found it boring, so I'm right there with you as far as that goes. So,
I mean, there was nothing about it that made me go, "Oh my god!" It was just like, yeah, that's a good movie, but what makes it the best?
it insists upon itself.
It insists upon itself. That is absolutely correct, there, Lester. You said it. I didn't have to. You said it. Thank you.
Now, I'm going to throw my 2 cents in real quick about In a Violent Nature. And I think it would have been more interesting of a film. Still do it from the killer's perspective. If you know that, I know that was the whole gimmick of the film, but I feel like they should have told some mini stories within it. I think if it would have been more of a anthology, and maybe we found people that were doing like illegal things out in the woods, I think that would have been more interesting. I think it would have been more interesting if we would have just a pitch, the killer's stalking a man who took his wife out to the woods because divorce is not an option, so the guy's planning on killing his wife, and then they happen to run into the killer. Just put some interesting little tidbits in there. Make it more of an anthology. It could still be the killer's perspective, but the killer watching these other things unfold and then getting involved. I think that would have held my attention a little bit more. So I don't know.
Would be kind of an interesting approach. I would like to see that in a horror movie. That is actually would be a fun idea. Like, what would that be like? Who are you rooting for? Well, obviously, you'd be rooting for the killer. You'd hope.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes you have to play into the tropes. And I feel like if they would have added just a hint of funny to this movie, because let's face it, they're always killing horny teenagers. If we would have heard if we would have heard the killer like sigh or something after seeing some teenagers, running off to the woods to have sex, and he's just like I don't know. I think that would have made the film. It still could have been scary, but I think it would have had a little bit of a comedy aspect to it, and I think it would have made it more enjoyable. And just give us more characters that are interesting. I felt like a lot of the characters in this film were just sort of bleh. Like, I wasn't really rooting for anybody to survive. I did like the death. I'm trying to remember where it was exactly in the film. It's where the girl's doing yoga.
Yeah, that was the one that really got us to where it was. It's an interesting kill, but everything leading up to it just frustrated us to no end.
I'm sorry, but I know she looked over the edge, but I would have still gone. I would have still jumped. It wasn't straight down. It was an angle. So she could have slid part of the way down. She would have got fucked up, but at least she'd probably still be alive and not have her head coming out her fucking back.
Or, she could have ran to the left or to the right when he was still 50, fucking yards away from her as she watched him walk down that long-ass path.
Right? It's like, why are we freezing up? Right? I'll tell you another thing that would have been interesting. We see everything from the one killer's perspective. At the end of the movie, they stop the killer. Let's say they stop him. And then all of a sudden, the camera angle's just out in the middle of the woods. And you're like, why is it out in the middle of the woods? And then you see another person, like, stand up. And you're like, oh, there's another killer. But then you see, like, more people and more people stand up. What if it was like a whole group of these inbred, redneck, hills have eyes type deal? Like, that would have been kind of badass. Just, I don't know. I think they had a good idea, but I think they were lacking in the story of it all because they felt that their idea was unique and different. So they were like, we can just rely on that and it'll be okay. And to me, that's just, it doesn't make for a good movie.
Yeah. No, it's got a lot of problems. And I'm sorry, anybody who watched it, because I've seen the headlines, were like, this is a masterpiece of cinema. I don't know what movie you watched, man, but it wasn't the same movie I watched. I'm sorry.
So is Goosebumps to some people.
Yeah. Well, it really wasn't scary, in a sense.
No.
I feel like the thing that makes a lot of horror movies scary are the jump scares, and you trying to figure out where the killer is. And I know that's one of the things I pointed out is it didn't matter where he was, quote unquote, lurking in the woods. You knew exactly where the fuck he was because you followed him all the way there. So there was no jump scares. It was just like, okay, how's he going to kill this one? Okay, how's he going to kill this one? It would have been better as a short film that you could have crammed all this stuff into and it would have flowed faster And I feel like it would have helped
Right.
keep attention more than just seeing him walk for 5-10 minutes at a time with nothing.
Nature documentary.
They should have showed him on like a dirt bike or something. Like, you know, the people get away and he's walking and then he like looks around real quick. He hops on a dirt bike, just taking off. It'd be a great parody movie. Like they could make this into a hilarious horror comedy and it would work. But I agree with you. I think if it was a short film, it would be so much better. It would have flowed a lot nicer. And maybe that's why I think like in the vein of an anthology type movie, if they were to do a full movie, because at least that breaks it up a little bit. It's not the same monotony. It's not just, you know, I'm sitting here and I'm watching this guy just walk around for hours. Like, I think you can only do certain movies from the point of view of the villain. Classic movies like The Wolfman. From his perspective, that's a whole new meaning. And he's battling a lot more. This is just a psychopath in this movie who's just following people and killing them. Like, come on.
Yeah,
Like,
I still
Give
feel
us a
like
break.
I still feel like there's a great idea there. The execution was not thought through. Like this literally felt like someone had the idea and says, "I'm going to write that shit right now," but didn't think about all the complications that's going to go along with it. You know, because there are a lot. I mean, anybody who knows shit about horror would say it sounds like a great idea, but I also know that my slashers are mute and they don't have partners. Therefore, what are we watching?
Yeah. You know, this could almost be a good script for a porn parody movie.
Yeah.
He stalks the people, he fucks them, then he's on to the next ones.
Or are you going to chime in?
Go ahead. Oh, sorry.
I guess, is Chucky not considered a slasher? Because he's not silent. He talks, he cuts up everything else.
True.
All right.
He talks and cuts up, so not all your slashers are silent.
Sure. Okay. Now, following Chucky is easy. Okay. I feel like that's an angle that works. You can follow Chucky because he talks and he interacts and whatnot. Following Freddy, I feel like he would have to be in the real world for that to really work, because in the dream world, it would just be like wherever he pops up. And then it would just like Freddy in his downtime in the dream world, just like in the break room going, "God damn it. When's everybody going to go to sleep? I got to wait around for this shit."
It's hilarious because a while back they were doing this TikTok trend where they were playing Dolly Parton's song 9 to 5 and like it was showing people get around and stuff. I wanted to do a Freddy parody of what he's doing. Like his alarm's set for 9 p.m. instead of 9 a.m. and he gets up and he gets his shower and he's getting his coffee and he's packing sleeping pills in case he has to give the kids sleeping pills. Like that's what I picture Freddy doing in his downtime. And when there's no kids sleeping, he's playing Nintendo with the Power Glove. Like that's just what I see.
I mean, why not?
Now, another thing I think would be kind of cool if you could somehow put a twist in the film. We're following a slasher, and you know they're doing their thing. They're killing people, but then you find out that they're actually not so much the villain of the film. They just want to be left alone. And what if there's like a group of mercenaries or something trying to get them? And then it turns into something like that where at first you think it's a film where you're following the slasher, but then you find out that the slasher is trying to survive being attacked. Like they just want to be left alone and all this stuff's happening. That could be an interesting angle, and you could still get some interesting jumps and things like that because let's be real, even if you're following the big hulking Jason-esque type character, if a Marine or something hops out of somewhere and just starts tearing them the fuck up, you're going to be like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Could be cool.
Yeah, I could dig that. That would be kind of fun. Just kind of playing it off in my head. I think you could do a misdirect. Like think you're going to go one direct. Marketing, that would be tricky as hell, but yeah, I think you can pull it off.
You know, it comes down to the same thing that I always say. They need to just give us some free reign because we could do it better. I'm not conceited at all.
I was going to say, I really think that, especially with Jason, because that was one of the things that I brought up when we did the podcast last week about this movie, is that if they would have done like a fan film, like they have done on YouTube countless freaking times, but done it as Jason and then had it following him in like the second movie or whichever movie. Pick one of the freaking movies and just have it following Jason. have all the same characters, so you know all the dialogue already from those victims' perspectives. And then now you're getting to see what Jason's doing while all the rest of the people are running around and, you know, all the other crap's happening. That would have worked better. And I can understand not wanting to rip off or, you know, lift other stories and stuff like that, but I feel like it just would have been better because you would have known everything else that was going on already. So following him for, you know, half an hour wouldn't have been that daunting.
Plus, if you think about it, depending on which movie you're following him on, he does like to do art pieces with his bodies. So you can show him setting up the bodies and hanging them or twisting or setting up traps. You know, he does traps every now and again. So
well, and he always hears his mother talking to him and sees her and things like that. So to show that perspective as well, that would be really cool. Another thing, I know this is very random, but another thing that I like to do when I think about films and I think about seeing things from a different character's perspective, I look at it this way. If you had the opportunity to play as that character in a video game, would you? And if you would, then I think it would be interesting to see things from their perspective. Just like I would love to see a short film, not a full-length one, but a short film from the xenomorph's point of view. A xenomorph on a ship stalking its prey. I think that would be kind of cool. But like I said, with this movie, like I said, I think there was a great idea, but I think that's what they were banking on, was we've got a good idea. So we're just gonna drag it out. We're gonna make it work for this long. It's like, yeah, you had a great idea, but execution could have been way better. And, you know, I'm not gonna knock anybody that enjoys it. If you enjoyed it, cool for you. You know, you can enjoy what you want. Just was not something that I can say that I enjoyed. I had it on for background noise. And I felt like I got to the point where I was looking down at my phone. I was playing games on my phone, and then I would look up and I'd go, "Oh, he's still walking. He's murdering that guy."
I literally was doing laundry as we were watching this film. I took a moment to walk out of the room to go check my laundry and move it to the dryer. Came back, and nothing had happened. Like, of any interest, you know what I mean? I think he was walking, and I was like, oh, good, a good time to stop. And I came back, and he was still walking, and I was like, oh, okay. So, you know.
Dude's got to have wicked cardio. Just saying. Hey, there's what they should have done for their movie. They should have put a Fitbit on him and done it from the Fitbit's perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would kind of like to know just how many steps he had to take. Because it's not like it was a small area like Camp Crystal Lake. So this motherfucker had to be walking like all over these woods.
I will say it again, and I will die on this hill. The guys that made Never Hike Alone, which I know Steven probably still hasn't seen.
I have not. I'm sorry. I let you down. I know.
I'm going to tell you, if they gave those guys the rights to make a Friday the 13th film, like if I read an article that said that the studio made a deal with those guys, I would applaud the studio, and I would say well-deserved, because Never Hike Alone, I think, is a fantastic Friday the 13th film. And it's from the perspective of a hiker who ends up at Camp Crystal Lake by accident. It jumps from first person to third person. And Jason's mainly only stalking him through most of this film. But it's just the way they go about it is just phenomenal. And those guys deserve it. They really do. Steven, when you watch that, we're going to talk about it.
Okay, I'll get to it eventually, and maybe we can make it a podcast episode.
I'm gonna hold you to it.
That would be a good way to do it. Is say, hey, we're gonna talk about this on the show, so you're gonna have to watch this, and then I will be like, I gotta watch it.
True. I've been telling you for a long time to watch the movie that we're gonna talk about today, and when I brought it up, you told me that you watched it. So I actually, I'm sure you probably have a few news things, but I'm just gonna say, like, I'm glad you guys finally watched it. I hope you guys enjoyed it for what it was. It doesn't reinvent anything, but I think it does a pretty good job at what it does. I think it's a fun movie. But before we hop into anything like that, did you have any news tidbits for us? I feel like it's been kind of a nonchalant week for news.
I mean, there's a few little tidbits I wanted to bring up. Like we saw the trailer for Your Monster, which is that horror rom-com that Melissa Barrera is starring in. I don't know who the guy playing the Beast is, but apparently he's one of those people that's been in a lot of stuff. Just might not immediately know who he is because I looked through his filmography. But movie looks pretty good. Like, I'm kind of interested. I kind of want to see it. You know, I'm glad that she's still going strong after the whole Scream debacle. Fuck those people over there.
Fuck them.
They're going to regret ever canning her. I promise you that. When Scream 7 bombs because they went right back to the same old tired trope of Sidney fucking Prescott. I love you, Nev Campbell, but this character's got to go somewhere. She either needs to die or she needs to just disappear. Because my God. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So I don't know if y'all got to check it out or what your thoughts were.
I've seen a brief glimpse of it, and I'm invested. So I hope to see more. So
I am also excited about it because, as you know, I'm not huge into horror. So anything that's like horror and love, like Lisa Frankenstein, was fucking amazing, and I absolutely love that movie so much.
See, we should have brought her on for that. I should have thought about that. That would have been a perfect one.
And it's on Prime now too for all the ramblers out there.
Yeah, shame on us. We screwed up.
For shame.
Let's see. So there's a movie, and I don't really know how I like this. How they're positing this headline because I don't feel like the man went anywhere. Okay, Katrina, I feel like you'll feel the same way. Lester, you may as well for certain reasons. But there's a movie that came out at TIFF, which is the Toronto International Film Festival, if you're unfamiliar. It's called Ick, and it's apparently a horror comedy featuring Brandon Routh. Brandon Routh, who casual people may know him as the Superman from Superman Returns. If you know him from anything, it would be that, possibly. However, people in this household know him. He was Ray Palmer on the Arrowverse shows. So he got his comeback as far as I'm concerned. And that's what they're positing here is like, is Brandon Routh getting a comeback? And it's like, but what do you mean comeback? He never what are we talking about? You know, I'm sorry. I still feel like he's just been around and he's been killing it on the CW. I'm sorry. If people want to shit on the CW shows, I'm going to go on a rant right now. Look, I understand it's the CW, okay? But those shows were giving people like me what we never had growing up. And that was comic book television shows of high grade caliber. I mean, the closest we ever got was The Flash with John Wesley Shipp, and that was like one goddamn season of that and never got to see it again. And then we get stuck with Lois and Clark. Bastards. Anyway, I love the Flash Arrowverse or whatever the fuck it's called. I'm sad that it's over, but it was an era, and anybody who wants to knock it. Brandon Routh is a treasure. I love that man. All to say, he's getting a comeback in this movie, Ick, and apparently it's a really good movie. So that's all I wanted to say about that. Noah Hawley says of Alien Earth, promises it will have scary xenomorph moments, whatever the fuck that means. I would hope so.
Like, are they getting walked in on while they're in the shower or something? You're going to see like
I don't
a
know.
xenomorph like, ah!
I mean, all I know is that I that's what I want out of an alien movie is scary moments with said aliens.
Oh, I thought you meant shower scenes.
Well, it's one of those things that I've never really considered, but, maybe seeing a xenomorph in a shower. Or it could be kinky.
I wonder if they have a little mini toothbrush for their little mouth inside.
They could, yeah. And then they got a little one down here and it's on a little fingernail or some shit like that. All right, we're talking insanity here.
Oh, I'm thinking about what slashers and monsters are doing in their free time now.
Here's some real kink. You got an alien queen and two predators gangbanging.
Can we help you with your egg sack, ma'am?
Anyway, sorry. I mean, there's
Y'all ain't right.
a lot.
We ain't wrong either.
A lot of stuff in that. Where are we here? What was I going to say? I just want to touch on this because we've talked about this several times and how we would have made us such a better one is the fact that, the Crystal Lake TV series is still struggling. And I guess Sean Cunningham is trying to give them some status updates and whatnot. And I guess it's looking positive or whatever. But, if they just give the show to me, I could make it the thing that they want it to be. But
if you get the show, I want to die on every episode. I'll be a different character, but I'll die on every episode.
Can make that happen. I want to touch on this one too. This is another interesting bit, and for some reason, I guess I hadn't put this together in my head. So, if you remember, I think it was last year, Netflix had a series called Monster, and it was about Jeffrey Dahmer. And it had Evan Peters doing being Jeffrey Dahmer. I know it got a lot of, I don't want to say controversy, but kind of because it felt like they were glorifying Dahmer. I guess that would be the proper.
I feel like it got a lot of controversy because not only are a lot of women very attracted to Evan Peters, but him playing Dahmer. And then, it was like women started being like, oh my God. And it was like a fucking thirst trap type thing, and I don't feel like that's what they meant it to be, but I know a lot of people said that they felt like they glorified the stories and glorified like the shit that he did. So I feel like that's where a lot of the backlash and stuff came from. But how are you gonna have freaking him playing a serial killer and not expect women to be like,
And just to kind of piggyback on that real quick, I know that's a big controversy with a lot of films and series like this. I always go to movies that did it right. The one I always think about is Monster. I can't think of her name that played the main character in that.
Yeah, Aileen Wuornos, played by Charlize Theron.
Yes, and she's a very beautiful woman, and they did prosthetics. They made her look a lot like the real woman.
We watched it.
And,
sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. I was pausing for you.
Trucker? Was she the trucker?
Well, she wasn't really a trucker per se. She was more like a...
Like long slit back hair, wearing the flannel.
Yeah.
Looking kind of...
Butch. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They definitely did it right with that. Because they took the performer and they sort of took the performer's looks out of the equation. And Evan Peters, a lot of women find him very attractive. It's also the fact that he was on American Horror Story, and he got a lot of fame for that, for playing a villain in that. So it just all kind of came to a head with Dahmer. And no, I don't think that was the intention. I think even the producers at one point even made an announcement or something about it, and they were like, we're not trying to glorify this guy. This is just an actor who's playing him. And could they have changed Evan Peters' appearance maybe a little bit to make him look a little bit different? Possibly. I think he kind of gave a decent physical appearance as Dahmer. He looked a lot like him. But it's a real touchy subject with this stuff because for some reason a lot of women really have a thing for psychopaths. It's like that guy that's got the death sentence right now. His name is Wade Wilson. Just like from the comics. But piece of shit guy, and all these women are like, oh, he could come to my house, and it's like, yeah, he could come to your house and strangle you. It's like, come on.
Yeah, I don't understand this kink. It I don't know. It creeps me out. Like,
Yeah.
What you this man is a killer.
It takes liking. Yeah, it takes liking bad boys to a whole new level. It's like, oh, I can change him. Yeah, you think you can change him till he murders you in your sleep. It's like, come on, people.
Yeah. Anyway, so you have the monster show that was with the Dahmer guy, and then now this year we've talked about this. I think I brought it up previous weeks before. They're doing a second season, which is what they're doing with the Eric and Lyle Menendez. So I was like, oh, okay, so now this is a series. I didn't realize it was a series until News Furry Season 3 came through. And apparently in Season 3, they are going to focus on Ed Gein, which I'm fascinated by that. And Charlie Hunnam from Sons of Anarchy is going to play Ed Gein. So I'm a little intrigued by that.
I can get behind that.
See, I feel icky watching shows like that.
Okay.
I don't know. Because I can like the actors and stuff like that, but I don't want to like the actor playing that character knowing that that was a real person and they did absolutely horrible things. Like, it's
I get that.
one thing to... Because, I mean, that is one thing that I feel like these... I'm trying to think of how to, like, get it worded in my head right. Because you have, like, you know, the serial killer podcasts and stuff like that where people talk about it and put all the shit out there. And I feel like that's different from somebody going through and recreating everything step by step and then you basically watching the atrocities that these people did, knowing that there are people who are literal fans who buy their murder weapons, the clothing that they wore, you know, have letters, you know, all this freaking stuff. Like, people idolize these horrible, monstrous people, and Hollywood's making money off of it.
Right.
And it makes me feel kind of gross. But I don't feel that way about, like, horror movies.
Well, because there's no truth in there, so it makes sense.
Yeah. But no,
Well,
even that one that we watched that was loosely based off the Town That Dreaded Midnight, or Sundown, or whatever.
No, Sundown, yeah. Town the Dreaded Sundown.
Even that one didn't make me feel as icky as the... Like, I haven't even watched the Dahmer one, but just seeing clips and stuff where people have shared it just makes my skin crawl.
Okay.
And I don't know what it is about it. And I think it's just because, like, with horror movies, growing up, I always had to tell myself it's not real. Jason can't come get you. He's not a real person. And now they're making horror movies about real fucking horror slashers and shit like that. And I'm just like, these are real people.
You know,
I don't like it.
Lester, I wanted to bring this up, and also for our audience, because we did a little deep dive yesterday, and I guess we could bring this up now because it was because of the movie that we looked this up. And this is, I mean, good a time as any because we were curious, is the concept of serial killers. There was something said in the movie that made us sit there and think, there are primarily just white male or just white serial killers. Like, when you think serial killer, you think white people. And
Yeah.
we did a search, and honest to God, white people have serial killing on lock. There were two black serial killers, and even one we questioned because Katrina did a deep dive on this man, and from what we heard, he got arrested for murdering two people, and then after he got arrested, some other killings stopped, and they said, I bet he did those killings too. And then just said, well, we're just going to attribute his capture. He had to be the guy because the killing stopped. They didn't do any more investigating than that. It was just like, he did it, sure, because the killing stopped. Not to mention the fact that, you know, the killer could have just said, you know what, this is a great opportunity for me to skip town and just fuck off before they do catch me or whatever. This guy's getting the blame. I'm free and clear.
Yeah. You know, there's...
Not to mention... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. And then I'll say what I was going to say.
Not to mention, first of all, if anybody wants to look up the man's name, his name is Wayne Williams. And he is literally labeled, he was labeled as a serial killer, even though he was only convicted of 2 murders. He was labeled as a serial killer, and the one that Stephen particularly is talking about is he is believed, never tried, never convicted, never admitted to it, but was suspected because at the time he was arrested, the other killings stopped, and those other specific killings was 28 children who just happened to be African American males.
Wow.
28 children to young adult is what they were saying. And it just happened to stop when he got arrested. So he was literally labeled the Atlantic child killer or something like that. And like, that is one of the first things that pops up when you look him up, is that he was a child killer. He was never fucking convicted of killing those children. They never found any evidence that tied him to killing those children. And this was over a very large gap. Well, not a huge gap of time, but a pretty good gap of time.
Yeah.
And it boggles my mind, because when we were talking about it, we were talking about specifically with horror slashers and horror movies, there aren't really any that you have sympathy for. There are some.
No. Yeah.
Like, I can have sympathy for Jason's mother. I can have sympathy to a point for Jason, at least within the first two movies.
Well, even Candyman, you can have a lot of sympathy for that character.
Exactly. That right there. Candyman is one of the only black serial killer horror movies, and I have nothing but sympathy for him because of the way that his entire story is laid out. It is always black men who were persecuted against and murdered, and it is just a vicious cycle of revenge. I absolutely fucking love that. And that's the whole thing that led us down to look up to see if there were any actual convicted black men who were serial killers. And out of the hundreds that were white, just the two. And one of those, I honestly wish somebody would do I want
an investigation.
Really know if Wayne Williams, who is still alive today and still sitting in fucking federal prison, is in fact guilty. Because just reading over the little bit that I found raised so much questions of how the hell did they get to this conclusion? Why do they suspect that? That doesn't add up. Like, oh, if he is, then he is. But we have seen a lot of black men who have been convicted and imprisoned and put to death for murdering people that they never fucking murdered.
Well,
and it was just like, whew.
To kind of touch on what you guys said, speaking of falling down rabbit holes, I had seen something, this was quite a while back, about the statistics, and that the statistics actually, they don't lie. Like, the majority of serial killers are Caucasian. They're white men and white women. And there was a study done where they, I'd have to find the article to actually like send it to you guys, but basically they were talking about, we all have things in our genes that make us the way that we are, that are passed down through all of our ancestors down to us. Society also causes changes in our minds, in the way that we act. And if you look at the way that white people have been in history and throughout time, things like owning slaves, things of fighting for power, being in control, even things with religion, things like that, it all leads to a very inept violence that we all have within us. And what they did in the study is they basically looked into some of these people. And if you look at a lot of these people, they have those things where they want to have power over other people. They want to be in charge. Things that go back to a very primal part of us. And not everybody acts on those things. Don't get me wrong, we all have those moments where we see somebody and you're like, I'd like to punch this person in the face. And that's a very primal thing. Sometimes with serial killers, though, it's one of those things where it boils down to, I want to have control over another person's life.
Well,
and with that
that's
in my
one
hands.
Of the things we kind of brought up about the movie yesterday, is because obviously towards the beginning, you're kind of questioning, like, why these specific kids? Why this specific girl? Why? By the end of it, you kind of get an answer, but not really. So then it just raised even more questions. And that was one of the things that I remember asking Steven was, oh, does he have mommy issues? Because a lot of the times when you hear about a man killing women who look a specific type of way, it either has to do with their mommy, or it has to do with their wife, or some female in their life from their childhood that fucked them up.
It's true. I can't argue with that. So
They should do a movie about a guy that kills furries. Just hear me out. And when they arrest him and they're talking to him, he'll be like, "Yeah, I only kill people that look like my wife." And they'll be like, "But you're killing furries." He's like, "My wife was a bitch." Just saying.
Well, while we're on the subject of serial killers and true crime, let me point out another movie trailer that came out for Netflix called Woman of the Hour, which directed by Anna Kendrick, based on a true story about a woman who meets a guy on the dating game, and the guy turns out to be a nut job and starts tracking and following her and being weird and shit.
He's a serial killer.
Yeah.
Like a real serial killer. What's his name?
I don't know. Let me open up this thing.
I think he was literally, like, his serial killer title was like the dating game killer.
Well, I'd probably track if that's the case, because
Yeah, he it was a real thing. He lost out to another guy because the girl found him creepy.
Well, duh.
And she was right in that one, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and the movie will be streaming on Netflix in October on the 18th. So that's something you're looking forward to, which I wouldn't mind checking it out.
Funny enough, I'm almost positive because I know I showed you a clip of it, and it was off of TikTok, and somebody had posted a clip because he was on the actual dating game show that aired on national television, and somebody shared the clip of him, the real serial killer, on that fucking show, and how he answered the questions and shit. And you could just tell something was off. And it said something like, I don't remember what like the little title clip thing was, but it was something, like when people seem normal, but then you find out they're not, and then it jumped to his mug shots, and then blurred out pictures of crime scene photos and all kinds of crazy shit. And that's how I was like, oh, shit. So when we watched the trailer for it, that's when it clicked of, he looks familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And he does kind of...
That's the guy. Yeah, that's the guy. That's the guy that did the thing.
Guy.
So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. October 18th. I know we kind of touched on it, and I don't really feel like this is horror, but it's horror adjacent in some aspects. But the Gremlins series on Max is getting a second season called The Wild Batch. They're moving to San Francisco out of China. It looks like it could be fun. So we watched the first season. What was it called? Secrets of the Mogwai. And I mean, it was good for what it was. I mean, I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was a bad adaptation. I think it just felt so foreign to what we'd seen that it was kind of jarring. But once you kind of get into the flow of it, you're like, all right, okay. So I liked it.
I feel like if you take it and kind of disassociate it with the movies, it helps follow through a lot more, because it doesn't add up to with the movies. How everything goes.
But there is a lot about Mr. Wing. How was his name, right?
I think, if I remember right.
That's right. Yeah. There's a lot about him we don't know. Like, we just know he ran this antique shop in Chinatown.
And
How
he could
got
probably
there?
kick Mr. Miyagi's ass. I'm just going to say that. Something
Probably.
about him. He could throw hands.
I mean, take a look at him in this as a youth. I mean, that's who we're following here. I mean, damn. He's a pretty clever little youth. He knows what he's doing.
But that's what I mean. Like, how bad did Gizmo fuck up this poor child to make him some old, hateful little man who ran a fucking pawn shop? Because he was kind of dickish. And I understand, the whole, you got to take care of a Mogwai, and it's a lot of responsibility. But you literally had Gizmo as your best friend for almost your entire freaking childhood and adult life. and you kept him locked inside a fucking box.
I know how they're gonna.
How long?
I know how they're gonna end Gremlins completely, and it's gonna break everybody's hearts. I was just thinking about this. They're gonna make another Gremlins movie. And all the evil little gremlins are gonna get a hold of Gizmo, and they're gonna force feed him so that he turns into one of them.
I've genuinely thought of that very thing. Like, that's something that if you want to end it, that'll do it. You know, just turn him into a gremlin and be done with it. And I feel like they're I don't want to say they're going to do this because it wouldn't make sense, but I feel like they're tickling the idea of it in the new season, because there was something about them trying to push Gizmo into turning. Like, their version of the brain gremlin is like, you're one of us. You know, trying to get him to turn. And it's, oh my, as George Takei.
Oh my.
Oh my. Oh my. He's being a good little gremlin. Oh my. Anyway, I'm looking forward to, speaking of other horror movies based on weird fucking people that probably could be real. That movie from A24, Heretic, with Hugh Grant, where he's the seemingly simple guy in his house and some Jehovah's Witnesses show up to his house or whoever, and they're just like, well, can we talk to you about Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons? And he's like, come on in. My wife's off in the other room. Let me go get tea or whatever. And they're just like, wait a minute. And then flags go up, and then realize, oh God, this guy's a crazy man. Have y'all seen this trailer? I know you have.
Yes.
I showed it to you.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the trailer.
We watched this trailer. I know we did.
I like Hugh Grant as a villain because he's kind of a villain in real life. So I'm all for it.
There's only one Hugh Grant movie that one that I'll consider a Hugh Grant movie. The other I don't really feel he is the main character, but he's doing a voice. But 9 Months is my Hugh Grant movie for whatever reason. I just love it. I think it's a funny movie because you got a lot of funny people in it. Great stuff. And then, of course, Pirates, the Aardman animated movie, The Pirates. He was the captain. You know, those are my Hugh Grant movies. I could give a shit about anything else.
What's the one movie that's coming out with, no, it's a series with Billy Crystal that we've talked about, like, loosely.
Yeah, what is that?
I can't remember. I'm all for it, though. I'm going to say that. I'm all for comedy actors taking on horror movie roles. I don't know why that's so appealing, but all I can say is watch Robin Williams in 1 Hour Photo, and you'll understand.
Oh yeah. Not that this is a big surprise, but it was overheard this past week that Damien Leone said Terrifier 4 is not out of the question. So if you're looking for more Art the Clown, looks like it's going to be happening.
I've seen some reviews for 3, and people enjoyed it. Apparently, most of the kills are as extreme as the bedroom scene in 2, and I don't know how they managed that. I heard the only thing that kind of sucks about it is they do still build upon the story a little bit, but they could have built upon it a little bit more. So it to me, it sounds like they're struggling a little bit. The first movie was really nothing but kills. You're just following him killing people. The second one was they tried to put a bunch of lore into it. You still got your death scenes, but they tried to put so much lore that it was a little tedious to watch. Yeah. This one, they're kind of figuring out how to balance things out. So if they do a 4th one, I'm hoping that they kind of figure out their balance perfectly. So
it would be nice. We got a trailer for Squid Game Season 2, which is looking pretty interesting. I'm curious how this is going to play out because we're seeing our protagonist, whose character name I can't remember, and whose real name I can almost remember because it was, hang on, it's a name, and the computer's failing me right now because it's making me look like a liar because I was going to have his name pulled up. And then what's happening right now is this page is refusing to load, so I can't see his name. This is what the fucking internet is doing to me right now to make me look like an ass trying to find this man's name. Just absolutely refusing to open this fucking page. So Squid Game Season 2, starring that guy from that Star Wars show that you may or may not have watched and been mad about.
That one guy, you know.
Yeah.
You know who he is.
Let me tell you about May. Please. No, I didn't kill your sister. Please stop. No, let me explain. Let me take 8 fucking episodes to explain shit. Sorry.
They take 8 episodes to explain shit and still come out as the bad guy at the end of it because he was still an absolute horrible Jedi. Which
I'm just gonna say this. Go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Oh no, I was from seeing you two talk, like the audience can hear you, but they can't see you. The looks on your faces as you were saying that, this was very personal. Very personal.
Look, okay, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole of the fucking Acolyte because when I started watching it, the first thing that I said was this is going to piss off so many white people, straight white male people, because guess what? They were not represented at all. Furthermore, and I was right, by the way, because what was the next week was like, look, fucking Star Wars has got lesbian witches now using the Force, and then got mad. But my problem is that we've got this guy here whose name I still can't pull up because the page refuses to load. Like, connection timed out. I swear to God is what showed up. The page is open, but connection timed out. I don't understand it. But throughout this entire thing, there's this mystery, okay? Somebody died. The sister died. Families died. Why did this happen? Why did it happen? But my biggest problem was he seemed very invested in this girl that he barely knew. You know what I mean? Heavily invested. Lee Jung-jae.
I was just looking it up.
Lee Young-jae. Or Young-jae. Or I don't know how to speak Korean. I speak Japanese, goddammit. It's not the same. Don't be racist.
We'll just call him Lee.
But yeah, Lee here, whatever. What was I talking about? You threw me off. Oh yes, the Acolyte. Yes, he was so heavily invested in this girl, wanted her to be his apprentice, but it never made sense. Like, why are you so invested in this girl? Why?
I feel like we would have gotten an answer if there would have been a season 2. Because I honestly feel like either the dude who turned out to be the Sith or somebody else, like he had a Padawan and something happened to them. And I feel like that is why he looked at May and latched onto her. He saw something in her that, made him need her, something to fulfill in himself. And this is one of the things that I love about this show in particular, because ever since the beginning, from the very beginning of Star Wars, the Jedi are not always good people. They have never always been strictly good people. They have lied, they have taken, they, literally manipulate children into shutting off their feelings, but then being hypocrites as adults and having those same feelings. Like, And I feel like that is one of the things that kind of makes me happy about the Acolyte, is because that is what they did. They showed you that the Jedi were nothing but hypocrites and that they only did what they thought was best and fuck everybody else.
Here's the thing for all the Star Wars people out there. I'm just going to say this. I did a short film. They actually had me write it for a competition. We never got the effects fully done. But here's the story that I had, and I think this would make a great series. I'm just going to say it now. Let's do Grey Jedi. Let's invest in it, and let's bring in the Grey Jedi already. Let's have a Grey Jedi who's so in tune with the Force, he doesn't believe in the dark side or the light side, and he thinks anybody who doesn't think the way that he thinks is completely inferior. And let's have a rag team of Sith and Jedi who have to actually join one another, try to take this fucker down. Just do that already. Do me a favor and do it. Make it happen.
What did you find, Stephen?
That's not what I found. It's what I did.
What did you do, Stephen?
I feel like your voice is not going to be heard for the first part of this, or at least it's going to be off in the background.
Oh, no.
Because I started noticing as we were talking, as I was looking at how everything was coming about, I was like, why is it look like it's not picking up a voice? And then it's picking up a voice, and it's not picking up a voice. And then I realized it's picking up my voice on one side, on the same.
Oh.
So it's been recording my voice twice.
Why?
Because I had set both tracks to the same microphone.
Gasp. Oh, no.
I can't hear what he's saying, but it doesn't sound good.
I've been recording myself the whole time, not Katrina. So she's going to sound like a distant memory off in the background.
Well,
Or at least for the first hour.
You can just tell everybody I'm just the producer sitting, in the background like all the other fancy podcasts and shit.
Screaming. So if you're tuning back in and technical difficulties are fixed, maybe, we'll put a disclaimer at the beginning. This episode was fucked thanks to me. And so, because I hit a wrong button or hit a wrong setting. So, if it sounds a little weird for half the episode, I'm sorry. There's the disclaimer and fuck off.
oh, wait. One more thing real quick, too. On this episode of the Horror Ramblings podcast, we're joined by Katrina, Stephen's wonderful wife. I figured I'd reintroduce her just in case. I had to do it, I'm sorry.
Be like, hello, I am back again. Or repeat your lines or whatever. We'll just go back and re-record everything you said.
Oh, God, I don't even remember everything.
Well, I'll play it back, and then you can just say it, close enough. Anyway. God damn it. I'm so mad at myself right now. Oh, yes. There was a trailer that came out this week that I was really excited about, and I wanted to ask you about it, and I completely forgot because I think I only saw it yesterday. But they are adapting one of the Hulu-ween shorts from their little Hulu horror thing.
Yeah.
They're doing a full-length version of the Mr. Crockett sketch about the little boy who was watching his favorite character, like the Barney character or whatever. And he's like, Mr. Crockett. And then the mom got mad because he was watching it all the time, got obsessed. Do you remember the one I'm talking about?
I think I do, yeah.
When you see the trailer, you'll know exactly what the one I'm talking about. Because when I saw it, I was like, hey, I remember that. And then I hit play on it, and it's like, oh, they're turning this into a full-length feature. So, yeah, I'm excited about that. It looks like it'll be a lot of fun. Like, that's a great idea of taking a short and saying, okay, this is the one we can expand upon. There's a good idea here.
Didn't you say that that's what they did with that new movie that's coming out, Monster? The rom-com?
Oh, yeah.
One?
That we actually found that out. The movie that we were just talking about with Melissa Barrera, Your Monster, that was a short film. And the reason we even found that out was because the guy that's playing the monster played the monster in the short film. So they're just adapting that into the full length. So, yeah, same thing.
A lot of people don't realize, too, that there are a lot of full-length films that are done off of short films. Like Smile was based off of a short film. Mama was based off of a short film. I know there's more, Mama. But those are like the first two that for some reason come to mind. I don't know why those are the two that come to mind first. And
that's spot on. Yeah.
I feel like an idiot because I didn't realize it until I saw a picture. Jack Nicholson's son is in Smile too, and I did not realize that. And I feel so stupid.
We didn't either. We saw that same picture
of him smiling, and it said like father, like son, and I'm like, holy fucking ass crackers.
Yeah, that was insane. Just seeing him, and I was like, holy fuck, he looks just like him. How did we not see that? I guess it's because we didn't know he had a kid. I didn't know he had a kid. I mean, it should track he's got a kid, but I didn't know. I don't.
Steven literally showed me the picture of him, and he was like, "Can you guess who his dad is?" And I was looking at him, and my brain kept going, well, it can't be who I think it is, because I don't think he has children. And sure enough, it was who I thought it was.
You know, he's one actor I would love to see one more film with him in it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he's one of my favorites. Always has been, always will be. But it just sucks because, you know, all my favorite actors are getting up there now. And yeah, I would love just one more movie. It could just be him eating a sub, as long as he's just talking like, oh yeah, it's Jack Nicholson sub time. Yeah. Like, I'd be okay with that.
I love it when they put the vinegar and everything on it. It makes it so good.
And then you got Al Pacino just comes and goes, hoo-ah!
Who put olives on my sub? Get the fuck back there! Sorry.
And the Academy Award goes to... They would win. They would win.
Yeah.
We've talked about...
Jack Nicholson and Al Pacino in Subway Stories.
We've talked about xenomorph porn. We've talked about Subway, Jack Nicholson, and Al Pacino, and Gizmo being forced into becoming a gremlin. This has been a fun episode so far.
I mean, we can take it a step further if we want. Hey, all right. So here's another movie that I'm looking forward to. I think this was also seen at TIFF, and it's looking like it's a return, like if this is a comeback. You know, they talking about Brandon Routh comeback. No, this is a fucking comeback because I can't remember the last time I saw Demi Moore in a film, and apparently she's just popped up in this movie called The Substance, which is a body horror flick about what do you call it? Like the obsession of making yourself beautiful and the liposuction, the plastic surgeries, the whole nine.
So, like having body dysmorphia?
Yeah, but all the links you'll go to be beautiful and like what you would do. Like have the real psychosis of some of these people, I'm assuming, but taken to an extreme of body horror.
Have you guys ever seen the ABCs of Death? Just real quick.
Not yet, no.
So there's a scene in that has to do with that. This woman wants to be beautiful. I'm going to spoil this for you just because it has to do with what you're talking about. She takes a knife to herself and she starts cutting away the parts of herself that she doesn't like. At the end of it, because she gets in the tub so that the blood doesn't go everywhere, but at the end of it, she steps out and she's real thin and everything, and she's got her body sculpted the way that she wants it. And she kind of smiles a little bit, and then she falls over from the blood loss, and she dies. And it is, like, extremely disturbing, but it has so much depth to it. You know, it shows the levels that people will go to be what they think is the version of beautiful.
And that's sad, because the version of beautiful that most women and men feel is not, I mean, it freaking changes with the time, and what used to be considered beautiful back when the Romans were walking around is completely fucking different than what people deem as beautiful now.
True.
And it's really sad because a lot of that, like a lot of the movies and stuff like that, make me think of actual actresses. I mean, Hugh Jackman's wife, he talked about before, well, now ex-wife, he had talked about before that she struggled a lot with how she looked and everything else, and having those thoughts of she wasn't pretty, and she went through all the plastic surgery. Joan, is that her name? Joan, is it Rivers? Is that her name?
Joan Rivers?
Joan Rivers, yeah.
She's also one that went through a lot of plastic surgery, and she was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And it was never pretty enough. So I got to get this done. I got to get that done. And it's really sad.
I think a lot of people who get plastic surgery just don't want to be biodegradable. I think that's what it really boils down to.
See, we're on fire today. This is what this is. This is jokey. This is just insanity to a degree. Now, I want to read things real quick before we get off the substance, since I did bring it up and we veered off into left field, and we're off in the corn patch and seeing scarecrows and squirrels and rabbits and shit. We're way off course, but I'm trying to get us back. So here's what the plot of the movie is, if I may. An aging actress who may or may not be Demi Moore, we would assume it is, she's given access to the substance, which, if injected, is supposed to give her access to a younger, perfect version of herself, which, as my understanding, becomes actress Margaret Qualley.
If they wanted to make it a horror film, it should have been a suppository. Just putting that out there.
Ouch. That would have been. So, Margaret Qualley plays the younger version of herself. However, this substance also has certain rules to follow, and when she violates them, disaster soon follows. So what that is, I don't know. So here's what it says. First sentence, or first two sentences from this review here. Because I feel like this, if this doesn't seal the deal for you, it's the first paragraph. I don't know why I said two sentences. Anyway, the substance was an unexpected toast of can when it played back there in the spring. Critics held revenge director, there we go, Coralie, 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 Coralie.
Let's just go with that. Yeah.
Coralie Fargeet. I'm going to assume I said that too. Somehow. I read it as it looks to me, Fargeet. 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 I'm sorry I can't pronounce your name. I didn't have prep time for this. Anyway, her maximalist take on body horror, with many praising the fearless lead performances of Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley. He said he went into it expecting a solid little horror satire, but didn't think he would be watching the greatest body horror movie since the heyday of David Cronenberg.
Wow. That's high praise.
That's fucking praise.
You know what? It almost makes me think. It almost sounds like it's if they took the comedy aspect out of Death Becomes Her.
Okay, yeah.
Like whatever this stuff is that she's using, it's almost like in the same vein as that. At least that's what it's giving me the feel of.
Gotcha. Samara Weaving is touting she's all in for Ready or Not 2, which I'd be down for that. Do you remember that? I'd be down.
I would risk my marriage for that woman.
That was the that's the one where she got married into the family and her.
Oh, that's the one. She married into
was
the
trying
family.
To kill her or whatever.
Yeah, they play a game because they have to do a sacrifice every year or some shit.
Yeah. Sacrifices.
I would be the sacrifice for Samara Weaving. I'm just saying.
Well, hey, I don't really feel like I've got too much more in the news category, so let's talk about our film for today, the movie that we all watched, because Lester pitched this out, and just you were saying that you'd watch it again. You were like, man, we should talk about that, and I figured, what the hell, let's just talk about it.
So I'm going to ask real quick, since I'm the one that pitched it. I was thinking of like a subcategory that we could do on the show for films. And I thought it would be fun to do little mini episodes about if a film is a hidden gem or not. I enjoyed this movie just because I feel like it's a fun movie. I don't feel like it takes too long. It's an hour and 30 minutes, I think. Or hour 20 minutes, I think. It gives you enough story to where you're invested, but it keeps enough in the dark where I feel like it's still interesting. It reminds me a lot of like what Wes Craven said. The less you know, the better. Sometimes too much story can be a bad thing. I don't need everybody's backstory. I like it for what it is. I think it'd be a fun movie to watch. Like if you were getting ready to go out to a bunch of haunted attractions, it'd be fun to watch that before you go to get you kind of amped up and kind of creeped out. But what did you guys think? Do you think this is a movie that would maybe be like considered a hidden gem, or was it something that you were like, one and done?
Okay, so I feel like it ran like just about any other kind of slasher movie and all that. So I was like, okay. I will say the jump scares were probably one of the best parts about the movie, especially in the bathroom where she is drying her hair with the very high up on the wall freaking hand dryer that I did not understand. And it looked over and then back and then looked over and then back. And then the third time, boom. And I jumped so fucking hard out of my damn seat. It scared the shit out of me because I kept expecting him to be at the door. Like it would look back and you'd just see the face. And then he was like, ba-bam, right there in your freaking face. So I will say the
Yeah.
jump scares got me more than a lot. And I scare easy, especially jump scares.
Yeah.
But I do think that it got me more in this one because I feel like they knew exactly what you were expecting. So, everybody who was watching that scene probably expected him to be at the door or in the stall or, further away than what he ended up being. And I thought that was cool. But I will say that I did get kind of bored with it because it just
I
felt
can agree
like
there.
the same slasher tropes.
Yeah.
Let's hide in here and, wait. And then, oh no, he blocked the exit. Oh God, now we got to go all the way through everything. And until the towards the ending, when the friend is about to get killed, from that point on, I was like on the edge of my seat because I was like, okay, this is different. Yeah. We're not just going to have one final girl. All right, let's go.
and see, I'll agree with you there, definitely, because I felt the same. I felt even the first time that I watched it and watching it again, I feel like there's a little bit of in the film where you're watching it and you're like, okay, like you're not as invested, like you're not completely bored, but you're like not as invested. I think the thing that kept me interested, even when I started to get a little bored, was the fact that they were still in like a haunted like attraction. So I was looking at it from the standpoint of, well, if this guy doesn't get them at this point, when's he going to pop up again? When's something going to happen next? So the anticipation of thinking, when is something going to happen next? Because I thought it would have been great if they would have been hiding from him somewhere and an actor or something would have been hiding there to like jump out and scare people. And then that guy would have like scared them and they would have jumped out.
Yeah.
Like, that's what kept me invested. But as you were saying, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was going to say, I almost thought that they had pulled almost a trope like that too, because towards the end when, the people realize, oh shit, somebody's actually murdering people. Like it's not just part of the haunted house. And the security guards tackle who you assume is the killer. And then you're like, oh, okay, that's not the killer. Like you don't see his face at all through the entire fucking movie. But as soon as they take that mask off, that is not the killer.
Well, and that's what I really liked about this movie was when the killer opens that cabinet and it's got all the different masks. It's like he knows every year what they're going to do at this place, and so he blends in with them. And I think that for me that really added to it because there's a realism to that. Like, what if somebody really did put on a mask from a haunted attraction and decided to go nuts one night and murder a bunch of people?
Yeah. And because, that was one of the things that me and Steven had kind of pointed out to each other when we were watching it, is he seemed to have like very detailed, like he knew where everything was. Everything. The little hidden doors, the little trap door, he knew where all of that stuff was. So either he works for the horror, the haunted house, or he goes like every single year and scopes this shit out.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the things like I kind of like about it, but also absolutely do not like about it is not having those answers.
Yeah. And
because
that was
I like
the thing.
having it explained.
Right. I know that they wanted to do a sequel for it, but at the time, I think when it came out, there were some other films that had come out too that had really outdid it, like movies people were really anticipating. So I'm almost curious if they did a sequel, if it would have answered some of those questions. And I know the ending of the film really made me like have a lot more questions.
Yes.
What about you, Steven? What were your thoughts?
I kind of feel like I was in the same boat as what Katrina said because there were elements to it that felt fresh, like the setting alone and concept of that. I felt like, okay, that's a smart idea because you surround yourself with all this chaos of death and monsters and murder and terror and, scaring people. So If you hurt someone and they start running around, oh my God, someone's trying to kill me, you're going to be like, yeah, whatever, shut the fuck up. And you're going to move along because you're going to be hearing that all night. So that to me was a very smart choice for venue.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry. I was going to say along those lines, that's what made it so smart when they had the scene about having to sign the waiver and stating like, oh, once you sign this, the people at the attraction can touch you. They can, that makes it seem really real and submerse you. So all the people who were there are like, oh, well, they just signed the contract too. So, it's okay.
Yeah. And
I want to talk about that too real quick.
Yeah.
Because all right, let me ask you that, Lester. Have you ever done anything like that? Have you ever went to one of these attractions where they make you sign a waiver so they can manhandle you?
So around, a lot of people don't know this, but Ohio has more haunted attractions per square mile than any other state. And a lot of the attractions, instead of having you sign a waiver, when you buy the ticket, it says on the ticket, you purchasing this ticket is the waiver. We're allowed to touch you, yada, yada, yada. And it says that, and they tell you that before you buy it. They're like, hey, when you buy the ticket, that's you giving the actors permission. I went to a haunt one time where they put my hands behind my back and they put a bag over my head. And they put me on this like tray thing, and I went through basically like their crematorium. I had one where they actually put me in a van. They drive you around a parking lot to make it seem like they're driving you to a location that you don't know. And then they let you out and they go about, all that. So and maybe this is where this movie is dear to me in that regard. I worked at a haunt, so a lot of the things that happen in this really remind me of haunted things. One scene in particular when they're walking through where all the people are standing there and some of them are mannequins, and he's like, look for the hands. If you see the hands that are moving, then you know it's a real person. But yes, I have seen the waiver thing before. I've only been to like 2 of them where I've actually had to sign something, but a lot of them, that's just how they do it. Instead of having you sign paperwork, they just say, hey, when you buy the ticket, right there, that's the waiver. We are not responsible for what happens.
I was just curious because we looked up one that's apparently in Tennessee, and the way she described some of the details of what they're allowed to do, I don't see how it's legal.
Yeah.
Like, they're talking about waterboarding motherfuckers and shit, and I'm just like, my God, man.
What was the one called that you looked up? Was it McCaney Manor?
Yes. McCaney Manor.
So that place is under a lot of scrutiny. They basically, if you can last the whole night, they give you like $10,000 or something crazy like that.
Yep.
People have lost
That's what
teeth.
I was telling Steven.
Yes. They are under a lot of scrutiny, and the guy that runs that has actually had to move several times because of the scrutiny they're under. You go and you make a day of it. They have a stack of papers that you sign. It's probably like about that thick.
40 pages.
And yeah, McCaney Manor's under a lot of scrutiny, but a lot of the places they won't like smack you or anything like that. They'll touch you. Like we went to one, and there was a prison scene, and they were like rubbing my face, telling me that I had a pretty mouth and stuff like that. Like just things that make you go, ugh, But yeah, I've seen the waiver thing before, so that is not something that is outside the realm of possibility. So that is something from the film that is actually like that is a legit thing that does happen. And I wanted to say, just on a side note, I think the reason that I enjoy this movie is for the same reason that a lot of people, like you guys are saying, you get kind of bored because it is the same trope. I walked into this movie the first time as I was watching it, I'm like, this isn't reinventing the wheel. Like it's not reinventing the wheel, but it's still a good wheel. Like it follows the tropes and everything, but I actually really like the killer in this. I think he's an interesting killer. I think he's no holds bar, like no hesitation in what he's doing. He's very calculated, and I would have loved to have seen a sequel for that reason, because I think the killer himself is really interesting. What did you guys think about the killer?
I definitely thought the killer was interesting. He definitely kept me guessing. um, just from the start, him humming, specifically humming. What the hell is that? Is the what was the little nursery rhyme thing he was humming?
I'm trying to remember.
Because I know it's not like an actual lullaby, but it's the do 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 do.
Oh, Pop Goes the Weasel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pop Goes the Weasel. Which is already like, I don't know about you, but me growing up was a terrifying fucking song to hear. Because you always knew something bad was gonna happen with it. But him singing that at first, I was like, huh. So I wonder if that's like something, specific. Almost like, it made me think of Kill Bill. Like,
Yeah.
when the chick's walking down and the whistle.
Yeah.
Made me think of that. But then, of course, by the end of it, you're like, okay, I get that kind of explains it, having a spawn.
I think the thing that made me like really like the killer in this was, and I'm bad with names in movies. The main girl, the guy that was with her, when he went back and he was like searching through the lockers trying to find the little stuffed toy.
Mm-hmm.
That whole scene with the hammer, I absolutely loved that scene because he's hitting him while he's down. He's not. I don't even think he was toying with him really that much, like just a little bit. But you're like, this guy's down to business. Like this guy came to kill people. And I think it was more
And
like,
slow.
I'm going to get rid of, and it was like, I'm going to get rid of all these people so that I can toy with the main girl. That's who I want to toy with. Like, that was the feeling that I got from it.
And see, it even had me wondering, the first girl that you see him kill in front of the main girl.
Yeah.
Like, she was just somebody random who was already there. So, like, was that a warm-up kill? Or was she just fit the profile? Because according to what you know of him, by the time we meet the friends and they're all at Hellfest, is that at least, one person had been killed years prior, right? Which was the opening.
Yeah.
So he went from killing one person to like 6.
Something like that, 6 or 7.
How many people did he kill in this movie?
I'm trying to remember. And I'm wondering, he has all these masks and everything. Part of me wonders
7.
if he hadn't maybe there was a buildup. Like if we would have got a sequel, maybe they would have shown like a buildup. Like he'd been planning it all these years and then he finally just lost it, or he worked at other haunts, or he went to other haunts and he killed people. I mean, there's a lot of wiggle room in all of it. And I kind of think he selected the girl that he selected because of the line that she says to him when he's holding that girl, getting ready to kill her. And she's like, just do it. Just do it. And she sits there and she watches him. And I think after she watches him do that, I think for some reason he's like, you're my next victim. You just watched me kill this victim. And who knows? Maybe that's something we would have found out. Maybe there was a connection. Maybe that girl that he killed in the very beginning had some kind of connection to the first killing that he did.
I mean, based on some things that we kind of looked up, it sounded like he may have just had a type. Because they say if you take a look at the girl that he killed prior, and then there's even pictures in his little trophy cabinet, you see a picture of a girl that looks very much like the girl he was after. So maybe they just fit a certain profile of a woman.
Yeah.
I mean, we even asked questions about like a spouse. Maybe he's got an ex out there and this is what the bitch looks like, and he's just taking his rage out on all these women that look like his ex. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a possibility.
That could very well be. So,
my
go ahead.
take on this killer. It's the best way to put it. Because I mean, look, I don't want people to think that I'm shitting on this movie at any point in time. I mean, like, I don't want that to be at all what I'm trying to say here. Yeah, I mean, he's a very effective killer. I was very like the scare tactics and everything that they use with this character it's really solid. There were a lot of, like Katrina said, a lot of good jump scares. I am more interested in the killer by the end, like I feel like a lot of people were. Because, all right, so let's just go ahead and fucking talk about this ending, because I feel like that's permeating the whole conversation, just us avoiding it.
Right.
So, I mean, spoilers as usual for this movie and any movie that we talk about on the show. We're going to talk about it ad nauseum, all the things. So, at the end of this movie, after everything has happened, because you do the whole showdown with the slasher killer, whatever, he gets stabbed in the gut. Okay, keep that in mind too, because I'm gonna bring that shit back up in a minute. He gets stabbed in the gut. They run out. Cops come in. Motherfucker's gone. Next thing you know, we're following this van to a little suburban house, and then we see that our killer goes down to this basement. He opens up this little cabinet, puts his little masks and everything and more of his trophies or whatever, goes upstairs, and then there's a girl on a couch, little girl, and says, "Oh, daddy," and then is happy, and then he presents her with the doll that he took off the one guy that from a carnival game. So this raises the big question. Okay, so this guy is a father living in a suburban home, and so what that does is that raises he's just a fucking normal guy? Like, no one would be the wiser as to who the fuck this man is? That's interesting. That's the big hook. Because now we're like, oh, what?
But that's in the realm of what everything is, especially with the realm of serial killers. That's normal. You always hear, but he was just a normal guy. He came to the church potluck. We had barbecue together. He was just your average person. He was a loving father, a caring husband, fill in the blank. And he was murdering people on the side.
Now, I have a theory that I've always had as to how he knew the park and had the house and everything. I almost feel like, what if this guy was like a designer or an architect or something, and he helped design the park
Or the owner.
Yeah, could have been.
I
started
thinking about that last night.
And that would have been cool. And like I said, I feel like if they would have gotten a sequel, I feel like a lot of those questions would have been answered. Like I said, when I pitched this movie to you guys, I was like, it's not reinventing anything. I think it's entertaining just because of the fact that the deaths are kind of cool, given the circumstances. The setting's really cool. And I kind of liked the kids in this movie. Like, there was stuff that I liked about them. Like, even when they were being annoying, I liked some of these characters. The one performer in this, which I have Hellfest loaded up here. I'm Bex Taylor Klaus. Yeah. Klaus. She that performer was in the Scream series. That was on, was it VH1, I think it was on, or something?
MTV.
They were in that, and really loved the performance. The first few seasons of that show are actually pretty decent. So I think that was what initially got me invested in watching the film. They were the one who were the guillotine scene.
Yeah.
It was that one. But they build up a little bit of a backstory for these characters. And that was one thing that I loved and I hated. There was enough of a backstory to where you're like, okay, I want to know a little bit more about these people. I'm curious about what's going on here. But they left just enough out where I'm like, I need a little more context here for things. So I was a little torn on it, but I was rooting for the main girl. Like, I really was rooting for her. I wanted her to be okay. Like, there was just something about her that I wanted her to be okay.
I wanted her friend to survive more than her.
Now, which friend?
I really liked her best friend.
Okay, her best friend.
Okay. I can't remember her name, but the one that actually has the best friend necklace and everything.
Okay.
She was like probably my favorite out of them because she was one of those friends, as you know, because we grew up with a large group of friends that, everybody had their best friend, but then you had your best friend's best friend and so on and so forth.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that I like her is because she's in the middle of these two other women who don't seem to get along that well. And she's just like, you're both my friends and I love you. But she's also the first one to go after the killer Granted, before
Yeah.
she knows that he's a killer.
Yep.
But she recognized him as a creep and she was like, what the fuck? And she chases this big ass motherfucker down. Thankfully does not die, because the whole time, as soon as she walks away from that friend group, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing?
Well,
Even if you don't suspect him as being some horrible person, why the fuck would your tiny little female ass chase down a man who has at least 250 pounds on you?
Well, and that's my thing with the movie too. Like, I feel like there was a lot of realism to these kids in it. Like, they did really remind me of like a real group of friends being out and about. Like, the chemistry, I feel like, was there. Didn't really like any of the guys very much in it, except for guy who gets the hammer to the head. Like, I thought he was a halfway decent person, but I wasn't that big of a fan of a lot of the guys in this movie.
No.
Their deaths were cool.
Yeah.
I like the guy that got jabbed in the eye. I thought that was cool.
I couldn't watch it.
I will say one of my issues with the film was, and I guess this is an overall thing, like we were kind of talking about, the by the numbers aspect of it. Like, they do the horror movie shit. I think that was even a comment I made. I said, why are they doing horror movie shit? You know, just those things, the cliched decisions is like, stop, don't stop. Like when the scene where the girl took off after the guy, I was like, okay, but why are you not taking someone with you?
Yeah.
You know, just take some friends, because they all fucking heard what she said.
Right.
That irritated me to no end. She was like, he took their photos. I'm going to go after it. He took their photos. And they're like, what happened? It's like, you fucking heard what she said.
The only thing that I will say in defense of that, like, that is the trope that's set up. She goes off on her own. But if it would have been any other horror movie, she would have been the first victim of that group.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think they surprise you sometimes with that little bit of stuff. Like, they do something that's a trope, and you're like, oh, great, another horror movie trope. But then it doesn't play out how horror movie tropes normally play out. So you're like, okay, that's a little different, but I'm still pissed off that they did it in the first place. It's like...
I mean, that's... Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry. As I
No,
said,
go
it's
ahead.
like
You're good.
when she, the main girl is on the ride. After her, the guy that she's sweet on, the curly-haired guy, gets his head smashed in with the hammer.
Yeah.
And she's on the ride. And then the masked guy comes over, who I'm going to assume was the actual killer, not just one of the other people. And then, of course, as they come out, then you see another one and another one and another one and another one. And they all have the same masks. And I think the security guard even said, like, there was like, was it 9 or 12 or some shit? When they said something, he's like, you just, described like 12 other people working here tonight with the mask.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool, because not only did it have you, because at first I was like, oh, fuck, she done dead. Like, how the hell? And then when it rolls out and he's just like creeping on top of it, and then he slowly steps down and goes to help her out. And I'm just like, so is it all part of it? Is he actually one of them? Is that actually him? Is it another person? Like, I'm really fucking confused right now. But it was terrifying. And I can only imagine being her in that instance and how terrifying that would have been. Because not only did he walk all the way over to you, but then he perched his ass a foot away from you. And then you had to ride with him the rest of that little ride until you got out of there.
Yep. As weird as it sounds, it kind of gave me the same vibe as, and it's going to be different in the context to a degree, but it gave me the same feeling of, I think it's in Scream 3, when Sydney's boyfriend's tied to the thing and all the people are like dancing around. It's during the performance. Was it in, it's in 2?
Yeah, it was in 2, the college. Yeah.
That's right. 2 was in the college. He's like looking at all these people, they've got masks on, and then he notices, something's off. Like, it kind of gave me the same feeling as that. There's that mislead, and that's what gives you the suspense. The beginning of this movie has a good way of kind of building things up, and you're like, okay. Then you kind of get into the middle, and there's parts of the middle that drag a little bit. And then, like you guys were saying, you get to the end, and then it's like, okay, this is getting a little bit exciting. Let's see what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
And I really feel this deserved a sequel.
Oh, yeah. I wish it had a sequel. I even asked Steven when it ended last night if it had a sequel because I needed answers.
And you know what? I even pointed out that the ending itself is very much one of those tropes.
Yes.
Where you have that twist ending at the end that just either blows your mind or you're like, blows your mind for the wrong reasons. This blew my mind in all the right reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was one of those where they're just like, we got to get him right at the end because again, you went by the numbers and then we were waiting for it. We were like, well, who the fuck is this guy? You know, because even when I think she stabbed him, we had made that comment where it was like, we still don't even know who the fuck this guy is. And we're like, there's no way we're going to find out in the next 10 minutes it's going to be anywhere satisfactory. And then they pull that shit and it was like, okay.
You know, to a degree though, I'm as weird as it sounds, like a lot of the horror movies when they go and they stab the killer or, you know, they incapacitate the killer, that's what they always do. They go to remove the mask. And I got to admit, yes, it's frustrating that they didn't do that in this movie, but it's also, to me, that was so real. Like, I'm sorry, but if there's a mask killer chasing me and I stab him and he falls over, I'm getting my friends and getting the hell out of there. Like, so I can appreciate it for that because that's a very real, I feel like that's a very real reaction that people would have in that situation. And, you know, I think that just makes the ending all that much more interesting. Because even if they would have unmasked him and they didn't know who the hell this guy was, like, if they would have unmasked him and still ran off or whatever, and then he would have ended up going home, I feel like that would have ruined it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have even pointed out because you see like a blood stain on the floor, you know, another classic trope where the killer was and now he's gone and there's a blood
Right.
stain. And outside, all these cops are running back and forth and we can't find him. And I was like, where the fuck are the dogs? Why haven't they brought in the police dogs to sniff the blood and then track the motherfucker down? Like, what the crap?
True.
But no, he got away. And that's the other thing because Steven even pointed out, he's like, he got stabbed. Yet he walks up in that house, goes up to his child, and then kneels down and hugs her like he didn't just get fucking shanked.
Well, and like part of me wonders, like, because it makes you ask questions. Like, yes, she stabbed him. Did he have something on underneath so that even though he you know, he didn't, maybe he didn't get stabbed as deeply? If he worked there,
be blood on the floor.
But
it wasn't that much blood really. When you saw it, it was kind of like a blood smear, not like puddle.
And it also supports the theory that he worked there or he knew the place, because if he knew the place, he would know where a first aid kit would be to tend to his wound.
Yeah.
And he would also know a way out where he wouldn't have to worry about police.
Yeah.
True.
So there is that too. And I understand, you know, because there are frustrations with it because you're like, I need answers. And like I said, if it would have got a sequel, I feel like we would have got more answers. I feel like there would have been a very different feel.
Like, I think one of the biggest things, because I can appreciate not seeing his face and not knowing much about him, because I feel like they're trying to say that makes it scarier. Like, not knowing who he is, knowing he's just your average person. For all we know, he could be a school teacher. He could be, the man that owns the local grocery store. He could be the fucking whatever. Police chief, firefighter. Doesn't matter. He's an average person who lives in this town, who has a child, possibly has a wife. I mean, I would hope he has a wife, because otherwise he just left his child at home for God knows how fucking long by herself.
Yeah, I said that that kid's absolutely a latchkey kid if there's no other fucking parent, because goddamn, he just like said, I'm bouncing all evening, so
Daddy's going out. There's mac and cheese in the fridge.
Yeah, I mean, damn.
But then it also makes me wonder, because if he worked for Hellfest as one of, the people, like, how would they not be able to track him down?
Right.
Especially after this part. Like, Because he doesn't seem like other killers where they go in for a set thing and then it kind of got thrown off because of, all the friends or all the other people or blah, 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 blah. But you could tell throughout the movie, he was definitely playing a game of cat and mouse.
Yeah.
He definitely likes the chase and the thrill of terrifying them before he ever gets the chance to actually kill them. So
Right.
there's also no telling how long he had been chasing around the first girl that he murders in front of, our final girl.
And he might have killed more people off screen, too.
Exactly. Because that's my other question. Like, even at the beginning with the very first girl, she was looking for her other friends. And then she was like, wait, you're not them. And then, she gets offed. Well, what the fuck happened to her other friends? What the hell happened
Right.
to all the other people who were there? So is he killing even more people and they're just finding like 1 or 2 people?
Yeah.
Because the friend group tells, the security guard, we've had 2 of our buddies missing. And he's like, well, they probably just got lost. And she's like, no, they've been missing. They know where to find us. She already knows the dude has her fucking love interest phone.
Yep.
And she doesn't even bring that shit up. Should have been like, I was in the bathroom. I messaged my boyfriend and this creeper has his phone and was standing right outside the fucking stall.
Now, see,
She
for
never
some reason-
mentions the boots.
For some reason, I thought she had. I thought she had mentioned the phone. I guess you guys watched it last night. I watched it the night before, so my brain's not braining, apparently.
I feel like she might have mentioned it to one of her friends, but I don't think she mentioned it to the security guard. Or even
I know
the boots. I don't ever remember her mentioning those to
Yeah,
her friends
'cause
either, but
I-
she distinctively saw them multiple times.
Yeah. Well, and I know
And
she
knew they were
also
him.
she also mentions. I know she mentions about her love interest, and the security guy's like, sounds like your buddy's just playing a trick on you. So, I feel like she to a degree was like worried about it, but I think also it was one of those things where she didn't want to believe that she was being stalked. Like she didn't want to believe that this was happening. And so I think, deniability was what was keeping her from losing her mind. So
I mean, I feel didn't she say kind of early on that she wasn't a big scary, she didn't like scary stuff, didn't
Yeah,
like
she
the
wasn't as-
horrors
yeah.
in the haunted houses and stuff.
she wasn't
Like
as
the other friends
into
did.
yeah, she wasn't as into it as everyone else was.
Yeah, I think even her friends were saying stuff like that too. It's like, yeah, you just have to forgive her. She's because the one that almost got her head cut off.
Yeah.
When
I
she's-
remember that was
yep.
one of her. Yeah, she made that comment. She's like, you're gonna have to forgive her. She's not. It's not her bag or whatever.
Which
So
one
That
of my favorite
One of
scenes.
the head.
The head, and I mean Tony Todd being in that is fantastic, but even when the killer's trying to do the decapitation, like to me that was so brutal. He lifts the blade and then you see the neck and how messed up it is. Like I'm watching that scene going, oh man. And then I love that when he was cranking it back up, he was having trouble getting it to work. Like I love that because let's be real, in a lot of movies things go right all the time for the killer. So for things to not go right, I can appreciate that. Like for me that was a lot of fun. And like I said,
it built the right kind of tension
Yeah.
for that moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, like you said, we know what we're expecting, and they're just like, no, let's not go that route. Let's in fact kind of fuck with it a little bit.
Yeah.
And defy your expectations.
And that's the thing that I appreciate about this film. Yes, it follows the tropes, but there's a lot of tropes that it starts to follow, but then it kind of throws a wrench into them, and you're like, okay, that kind of makes sense. Now let me ask you guys the ultimate question here, real quick. Do you feel like you wasted time watching this movie? In all honesty, you're not going to hurt my feelings.
I will say that literally up until the main girl busts out of that attraction to save her best friend, that is how I felt. Because I was just like, it's going to go the same way as every Friday the 13th, as every, fucking Michael Myers, as every horror movie film ever. It's going to go the same damn way. And then she busts out of there and I was like, okay.
Okay.
And it made me happy.
That's fair.
By comparison, I'm going to use last week's movie as a comparison because I felt like it was also trying to emulate movies of this time or of this era, you know, this 80s slasher flick. This competently makes one of those movies. You have seen said movie in different settings, but it is one of those movies. Was I offended by it? No. I've just seen these movies before. So if I needed a slasher, but I wanted something different, but I needed those same things, I would absolutely recommend this. It was just like, you want to watch a slasher movie? You just want to watch some? What do you recommend? I don't know. What are you in the mood for? This. It fits in the tropes. It's not a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
None whatsoever.
I feel like it's
as far as slashers go. I guess.
I feel like it's one of those movies that you don't go out of your way to watch it. Like, you're not going to seek it out to, like, unless, you know, it's for the podcast or something, but you're not going to go, like, out of your way to seek it out unless you've never seen it. But if I was sitting home and it was on, you know, it was just on TV or something, and I was just like, you know what, I'll watch something that I can kind of pay attention to and come back to and do things. It's not a bad movie for that. I call this one of those comfort food movies. It's oddly familiar.
Oddly familiar. That's a great way to look at it.
Sorry, I just had a realization. It is not like every slasher movie. There is not one single pair of titties.
That's true.
That's true.
There was no nude scene. There was no boobaloobaloobies. You never saw no skin at all. Except for, you know, heads and arms and legs.
And you know,
and we didn't get that shit in Violent Nature either, did we?
We did not.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch.
And see,
Well, that was another criticism we had thrown on that movie.
it's more likely to see that in a Violent Nature. At least with Hellfest, they like hinted at, like, you know, the one couple kept making out and everything. You kept you know, seeing that they really wanted to do it, but they were like, we're gonna get caught if we're here, so we can't. So there's that level of realism to
But
it
that's
too.
just young adults.
Sure.
I wanted to so I looked up some of the people involved with the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing too crazy. I just want to kind of read through these just real quick.
I mean, there was some pedigree. I did look their names up too, and I was a little surprised by some of the, I guess, credits behind it because it went under my radar 100%. So I was just curious how I didn't notice it.
Did you see the one name actually I thought was really interesting? They're one of the writers, Blair Butler.
Yeah, I
Who
did.
used to write
I saw
for
that.
she used to write for G4 TV, and actually she did some hosting. So I thought that was kind of interesting. There's a guy, it's Akila Cooper, who has written on quite a few things. He's writing Megan 2.0, wrote the screenplay for The Nun 2, the screenplay for Megan, Star Trek Strange New Worlds. He wrote 2 episodes, Malignant. I'm looking for horror movies. He wrote on American Horror Story. He wrote on Grimm, Tron Uprising, a TV series in 2012, 1 episode. I mean, he's, you know, written a few things. Out of all of them, I feel like he was the one that kind of wrote more things that you would really have heard of. Yeah, Seth Sherwood also a few little things, nothing that I would probably put too high on a pedestal. There's a few fun things that he wrote. He was an uncredited writer on London Has Fallen. I don't think you were such a fan of it, but he wrote the screenplay for Leatherface.
Which, you're talking about the one they did a few years
2017.
back? Yeah, fuck that movie.
2017. Yeah. He also wrote the screenplay for a video game, The Dark Pictures, The Devil in Me. Never heard of it.
Yeah, I have. They're like
I've never heard of it, but
cinematic, kind of those. God damn it! What's the name of that goddamn?
Kind of like Heavy Rain and all those.
Yeah, Until Dawn. They're the people who did. I think did something like very similar to that. Yeah. I know.
And I mean, you know, not bad.
The director, he had like his filmography. I think this is only the second movie he directed. But if you take a look at his filmography, he's an editor. He's edited Get Out, like almost all the Paranormal Activity franchises, Happy Death Day, like, so he's got
A Quiet Place, Day One.
Yeah, so he's got some
I'm looking at it here.
pedigree under him. So at least as an editor,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, this is one of those movies, Hellfest is, that it's just, like I said, it takes the same trope that people have seen. If this movie had come out like in the 80s, around the same time that these other slashers come out, I think it'd be one of those cult classics. Like, I would probably put it there because it follows the same thing. So if it had come out in a different time, I think it would have gotten a higher regard. But for people who just want a simple slasher film and they like following the same story, maybe like having a wrench thrown into the tropes from time to time, it's a fun movie for that. I enjoy watching it, and it's one of those movies where if I want to do something while I'm watching it, I can still look back and be like, oh shit, what's happening now? So I'll give it that. And I do think it's a movie that people should check out at least one time just to see if they get a good feeling for it. I wish they would have done another film or maybe done like a limited series to maybe tell more of a story to fill in some gaps, because I feel like it would give people a lot more appreciation for it.
I can agree with it. I feel like if you're a fan of horror movies, this is not one that's gonna offend your senses or anything like that. It's not a great horror movie, but it's not a bad horror movie. It's just one that you like. I could recommend. Give it a watch at least one time if you're just looking for something simple slasher. It's not gonna offend you.
I feel like this is one of those horror movies. If this would have came out when our other 4 kids, especially the girls, because they were more of the horror movie people. If our girls had have been young teenagers and this had came out, I feel like this would have been more appropriate for younger teenagers to watch versus like a lot of the older slasher movies. And that's just because, again, of the boobies and everything else.
Well, and I'll even go to this step and say this would be a great film if you were going to, October hits, your kids want to start going to haunted attractions. You watch this movie before you go to a haunted attraction with the kiddos to get them even more freaked out about it. Like, it'd be good for that, I think.
Sure.
I mean, and I don't feel like it was like overly bloody. I couldn't watch the eye scene, but I hate watching anything that has to do with eyeballs.
That was kind of intense because when he went back, it was like, ah.
Well, and the build up too, because it's slow. It's slowly getting, and you're wondering for a second if he's going to slowly stab him in the eye, and the next thing you know, it's whack, and you're like, ugh.
Yeah. See.
So, yeah.
Well, if y'all got nothing else to say about this show, this movie, I'll close out the show.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys liked it to a degree. I'm glad you guys liked the ending. We'll have to do some more of these. Just pick random movies and watch them and see what everybody thinks of them. So, but I don't have anything. If you wonderful people don't have anything.
Well, Katrina, it was nice for you to come join us today for this little episode.
Wonderful.
So,
Well, thank you for having me.
Ramblers, how do you feel about Hellfest? Have you seen it? Have you not heard about it? Have you been kind of on the fence going like, I don't know, I've heard things and I don't know how I feel about it? Let us know on social media at Horror Ramblings, or send us an email at horrorramblings@gmail.com if you don't want to send, if you're not on the social medias. Some people are not, and you're probably smarter than we are. If you want to discuss horror with like-minded individuals, join us on Facebook or Discord, or you can even find us on Instagram. You can find us on TikTok. You can go over to patreon.com/pencilpaperproductions and throw in some money if you're feeling froggy. If you want to help the show grow by leaving a 5-star review, you can do that. That would help. And tell all your friends to find us over at Spotify and look and see if we've got questions and polls and all those things that we do over there. No one ever answers a poll. Somebody did yesterday. It was one person. I appreciate it. You said yes to whatever we posted. So, oh, and to the asshole who keeps disliking some of the videos over on YouTube, I don't know what your deal is, man, but get fucked. Because I guarantee you're the only person doing it. You're that one person. And I'm going to start seeing it all the time now. You watch. Every video that I post from here on out is going to have a dislike. Fuck you. Anyway.
That guy cannot say spooky. That guy can go to hell.
They're just doing it for it's on random videos too. I don't know who it is. random topics. It's usually very particular topics, and I just think that they don't like our opinion on it.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry,
Get fucked.
you can have your opinion too. My opinion is no better than yours. Unless we're talking about certain things, then you're lying. Okay? Our opinions on a movie, that's a completely different thing. That's an opinion. You get it. You got it. I'm just going to let that go. Anyway, hey, everything over at pencilpaperproductions.com/horror ramblings. Links are in the show notes down below. Guys.
And remember, guys, stay spooky out there and watch out for lesbian space witches.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.